Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 81 of the WatchRolling podcast. This is a special episode. It's going to be an interview with Mike Pearson, now of Christopher Ward Watches. The pod is always sponsored by the Anti-Watch Watch Club. The Anti-Watch Watch Club is a 501c3 charitable organization. They are a veteran and Leo first responder-centric organization that provides monetary, social, humanitarian, and emotional support for those in need. They do it through a drop-style culture, Nalgene bottles, flags, hoodies, T-shirts, shoes, rash guards, the whole nine, you name it. Nobody in the organization draws a salary, and 100% of the profits go to the charities that they help. I invite you to check them out at antiwatchclub.org. They do cool stuff like this Notice Sector Deep collaboration, DLC. This thing's sweet. The loom's great. Check them out, antiwatchclub.org. The pod is also brought to you by Mushi Watch Straps. Mushi Watch Straps is a veteran-owned watch accessory and strap company that provide all kinds of well-built and fairly priced canvas watch rolls, nylon straps. You know I have a nylon gray fluted. I love that thing. It's just the perfect frame for any watch. Make sure you use the code VET10 for 10% off your total order at checkout. I don't get any money from any of the sponsors. I sponsor them because they're doing good stuff for good people. And I invite you to check them out. MushiWatchStraps.com and antiwatchclub.org. Like usual, let's just get to the show. Hey, Mike, and welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm all right. Hey, Jason, it's good to see you.
It's good. It's good to see you too. Hey, first I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. It's big news in the watch industry.
I don't know about it.
I think it is. I think it is. I peruse the Christopher Ward, which I never really do, the Christopher Ward blog sphere. There was a lot of topics going on. Oh yeah, they're all over it. But for everyone watching, we're welcome Mike aboard. Mike has joined Christopher Ward. And first off, Mike, let's do a wrist check.
Sure. What are you wearing?
I am wearing my Notice Anti-Watch Watch Club Sector Deep collab DLC. Good. Pretty snazzy, man. I like it.
I've for the first time owning a Christopher Ward.
Nice.
TI. It was Christmas time, as we know, just very recently, and so they sold through basically all of their bracelets. But I've got a titanium bracelet, which is for me the star of the show after the dial of this watch. But 40 millimeters, leader movement for the money. I don't know if you can beat it, but that's one of the reasons why I joined the brand as well. But yeah, I went with probably the best of their core line right now, and that the way they finished the bezel, the way they finished the dial, it's pretty special.
Beautiful. I saw the pictures of the dial, and I've seen a couple of them in person. I'm waiting for. There's something specific I would like to see with that specific model, and if it ever.
Is it a color? Is it a size? Is it a finish?
So I'm a big most of the guys that know me know I'm kind of I think some people say I'm boring, but I've been looking at integrated bracelet pieces, right?
Right.
And there's something about, I want my integrated piece to be like all metallic. So, okay. If it's titanium, I want like a silver dial or something similar. Like I want it to look like a slab of metal. You know what I mean? Because there's some very modern industrial aspects of that I like.
You're a watch guy. There's no boring there. It's not conservative. It's just maybe you've grown up with white dial, black dial, blue dial to be a little bit crazy. But if it's done well, I mean, you wear it with everything. So no right or wrong in you're thinking there.
No, that dial's beautiful. And, speaking to Sam over at Casual Watch Talk, Sam just, raved about it and it's pretty honest. So I like it.
I'm sure what's going on with my camera. I apologize.
It's okay. We'll, it'll work. Even if it's a little blurry, we'll still, we can always just upload the audio. I guess there's no big deal. But, so we're here to talk to you, Mike, about, you joining Christopher Ward. So what would you like the community to know?
Well, firstly, thanks very much. I mean, I think you being one of the first people, the first person that I've recorded anything with, I think it just kind of shows how I've worked for 15, 16 years in the watch industry. I'm a big people person. And I think I try and have a friendship with people as well. And I'm a big believer in trust. And so you asked me to talk to you about why. And I think there's a lot of people asking about why, especially because all my heart and soul was into Zodiac, and I still love the brand. But for me to have joined Christopher Ward, I'm also a big believer of the community. And if you see how I work at a trade show, if you see how I work in a store, obviously won't be doing too much of that with Christopher Ward the way they sell. But if you've got one person in front of me or 1,000, I'll give everybody all of me if I really believe in the story. I met Mike France a good few years ago. Obviously, if you know my past, I was with Bremont, which is another British brand. And so being with a British brand, you see these other up and coming ones, such as Vertex. You know how much you and I both like that brand. You see Pinion, you see Farah, you see Fears, and more and more are coming all the time. But at the time when I was working for Bremont, there wasn't too many British brands, and Christopher Ward came along. I think they were a very different brand then to what they are today.
Yeah.
But also when you are working for a British brand, it's also, you get your chest out a little bit. You're like, well,
Yeah.
we're the British brand. And you've also got your blinkers on. So you don't see the specialness sometimes. And that's to a detriment, I think, of everybody in the watch industry. Is you look at your brand, it's the best watch it can be, and you want everyone to hear the story. The time I had out of watches, I had a bigger appreciation for a lot more brands, and Christopher Ward definitely was one of them. If you've seen any pictures from the past, I've bought a few independents, including Vertex, Halios. There's all kinds of different. I love all types of different watches. But the first time I held a Christopher Ward watch, I went, "How much?" and "What?" and then you kind of understand the story, and it's very genuine. Who owns it and how they talk about it. But it all came back to community. And I had, obviously, the last 2 years with Zodiac, some of my main things I was doing throughout the year was at the wind-up shows, San Fran, New York, and Chicago.
Yeah.
And we were lead sponsors, Zodiac and Christopher Ward. But you saw Mike France, you saw his team, you saw how they interacted with the community, but also you saw how the community adored what they were doing. And this is pre-Bel Canto as well. This is, all the Tridents and the different dive watches and the certain watches they were making. And I absolutely loved that. A couple of years ago, he met me in London, and he was just saying, he's followed my career for years. And, I was very, very happy with what was going on in my career as well. So I said, well, it's great to meet you, great to talk. But I think the more we got to see each other work, I think we just naturally started to, I wouldn't say fall in love, but the dating started to happen there, and then more and more. And so you look at the business model, and this is very alien this first week for me to be not calling up stores and saying, hey, I'm now let's talk about putting the brand in the store. We can sort of talk about activations, and I can come and do some training, come meet your team. It's not like that. This is all sold online.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is fill in the gaps that, a brand in the UK, which is doing huge things here in North America, but it's a huge country over here. I'm going to fill the gaps with a bit of, for want of a better word, I'm boots on ground.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure that the people like you, your listeners, will understand what the brand is. If there's any questions, any confusions, I'd love to answer them. But more than anything, I love the tactility of trying on a jacket, putting on a pair of sneakers, closing the car door. But there's nothing better than trying on that watch. And what I know that we can't be in a store and we can't put a watch in everybody's wrist. But if I can make sure the community trust that the words we're saying online or the things they read on social media can be backed up at events, and then it goes through the forums, go through the podcasts, that someone will then go, actually, you know what, I can get this watch and feel very confident that I'm buying something special. And that's kind of where my skill set comes in there.
Yeah. Well, I think it'll translate really well online too, because it's crazy how many more people go to these shows than you realize, right? Because I went to Wind Up New York in 22, and I was just like, man, there is a ton of people here. And it was all different walks of life in that show. You could just sit back, and you could tell there was newer watch enthusiasts. You could tell there's more established watch enthusiasts. And the one thing I watched was just the faces of people, right? And you know who some of like the major celebrities, quote unquote, are in the watch journalist space or whatever. And, certain brands when they go to when they interact with the people, like there's this genuine sense of like childlike joy in their face when they see something, right? Or they're interacting with someone.
Who did you see that gave that impression, or that you had a little bit of a starstruck moment?
Oh yeah, for real. When I showed up, I was like, oh man, because there was people that I had seen, on videos and hear them, on podcasts. And then I had interactions with some people, and, and I don't want to name names, but there's some people that are really great. And there was some brand, I didn't have a bad interaction there at all, but I will say there was one brand that I won't name that you can tell everybody at that booth had no idea what they were selling.
Right.
And it actually, my buddy T was like, well, I'm not going to buy anything from them. Right. And he had been a watch enthusiast for about 8 minutes. And he said that,
Well, people buy people, don't they? And
yeah.
That's again one of the reasons why I'm here. I actually saw one of those starstruck moments in front of me at the last wind-up show, and it was with Random Rob. Shout out to Random Rob. Guy was just looking at a Zodiac, just looked up, he saw Random Rob, was like, "Oh my god, I buy it!" And it was like, this is great because people's trust when they're spending. No matter if we talk about entry level, $1,000 or $1,500, that is a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
And there's some people who are spending tens, $20,000, $30,000 watches. That's fine. But for those people who are getting into the hobby, and they've got their Grail watch, which could be something as affordable or accessible as a Speedmaster or a Navitimer, but then they've got the brands like Christopher Ward, Zodiac, we've talked about Fortis, Formex, Orish. You've got to be able to trust it because they're not everywhere. Well, some of the brands are, but we don't make, Christopher Ward do not make a ton of watches. Obviously, they're not in retail, but you want to make sure that your word is your bond, and you want to make sure that the quality's there. And that's why I've stepped through the door. I mean, you look at this particular watch and you look at the dial or the finishing of the bezel. It's absolutely incredible. 3 different finishings around that 12-point bezel, which is just unlike anything else. And you look at then the price tag of just over $1,000. It's nuts. But then you look at the dial, the hands, and then you talk movements, and they buy in Solita, they finish them, they're all chronometer certified. It's good. It's proper watchmaking today at the independent level. But then you look at it and they own their own movement as well.
Yeah.
And so then that comes out in special projects, which is just really exciting. The SH21, it's a beautiful movement, double barrel. So I think it's 5 days of power reserve. It's an absolute beast.
Nice.
And, they've got that, and they've had that for I think 5 years now with what I've been talking to the team about. And that can go in certain projects going forward, and that's their basis. But the Bel Canto comes along, changes not just Christopher Ward, but changes the absolute industry. Yeah. Every eye in the world went, who are these? What is that watch? And then they look deeper. How do they make it? How do they do it for that price? And then they want one, and then they realize that this independent world is hard. And that's probably where I'll jump in a bigger way, because if you go to the website, you want to buy one, there's like a year waiting list for this watch.
Yeah.
The first couple of colours are already sold out because they didn't know the reaction that the world would have. And obviously, that's what everyone would want. So Christopher Ward now have got this really wonderful point in their present to future where they can be whatever they want. But what is the brand? Is it these $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 dive watches? And then you've got the Bel Canto as the crowning glory, but then you've got to manage expectations. So this is an absolute treat for a watch guy like me to communicate the stories that are good, to disperse some of the misconceptions. One, you say, what do I want people to know? One misconception is they ship everything from the UK. And so everybody in America, Canada, Australia, they're going to get duties and fees, and the watch is going to be crazily expensive and hard to get. I heard a stat today that the average time to get from the UK to anywhere in America is within 7 days. Now that can be plus minus here and there. If it's on the East Coast, I've heard something as crazy as within 3 days you'll get the watch. But what some people miss is that Christopher Ward pay all the duties up front.
Nice.
So when you go to your checkout box and you go, oh, this watch is $1,000, it'll calculate what the duties would be. And if you live in a certain state, it will also include the taxes, because you got to pay the tax man, no matter if you're buying here or it's getting shipped in. But it's all calculated for you. And they also ship for free as well. So it's just alleviating some of the fears when you don't have the ability to go into a store and pick it out of a showcase. But you're going to get a factory fresh watch, all duties, all taxes, all sorted, paid for, and it's going to come straight to your door. So it's just getting those messages through. And then it's, what's the next bit? You and I would probably agree, you're buying something expensive. How is it going to be serviced? How am I going to be looked after? And that's already being taken care of as well. There's, if I know my first week's sales pitch correctly, there are 60 days that you can return the watch. And the movement is guaranteed for 60 months. And it's just absolutely incredible. So they're doing things right. They're doing things different. And all I want to do is just get out there, meet the community, show the watches in person, buy a few people a glass of whiskey or a pint of beer, and have a good watch chat. And it's just do things basics in that way, but do it our way.
Well, that stuff spreads like wildfire, Mike. I mean, can you talk earlier about you and Mike, France and your relationship, and it's, mutual respect, right? Over time
Oh yeah.
of seeing how each other work, and that's something that relates a lot to the military. A lot of, you don't like everybody on the ship, right? But you eventually, if you're hardworking, you develop mutual respect with a lot of people. And a lot of times that could turn into friendship or something close to it because you can count on that person, rely on that person. And that's something I've noticed with people that really, really love Christopher Ward. I work with a gentleman who has a first gen Christopher Ward. I think it's a C-63 Sealander. He loves that thing and he talks all about it. He's the gentleman who I told you who I had showed him the ceramic Zodiac after I came back from Wind Up in 22. He had mentioned it to his wife, like, "Hey babe, look at this." And she bought it for him for Christmas.
I
Right.
remember that, yeah.
And he just recently bought the dune, the sand dune.
Oh yeah. Field
The
watch.
sand, yeah, from Christopher Ward. He recently got that one and he loves it. And he talks about Christopher Ward like, some people talk about their cars. And he's not really what I would say is a watch guy. He takes care of himself. He likes the way he looks and dresses, and a timepiece is part of that. And he has respect for horology and all that stuff. But he talks about Christopher Ward like it's someone he has mutual respect for. Like the brand is a person. You know what I mean?
Well, that's how it started with Christopher, Mike, and Peter. I mean, those three gentlemen had an idea. They wanted to start this brand. They thought they could do it. I don't think they quite knew. This is just obviously just early on, just meeting them. Well, Mike and Peter, who now own it. Christopher Ward has now left the business, but you can just see that. And even here, some of the podcasts from just a few years ago, just the strength they have within themselves. It's not just the underdog spirit. It's like they want to build the watch right. They want to make sure that they can change this whole industry, and I think that's really exciting. But they also see the respect of these collaborations. So when you're talking about the military, they were approached, and this is very early on when they were doing these bespoke projects for corporate companies that do certain watches with case backs or dials. But when you get certain military squadrons in the UK come up to them and say, "Would you build us a watch for our squadron?" It was amazing how quickly they adapted their business model to the military, because they were flexible, they were fluid, and that's how they got the trust of the Ministry of Defence, and that's how that part of the collections come. Part of what I'll do over here is introduce some of the military projects and the possibilities of bespoke military squadron watches to the community. And I've not done that for years, since we did things with Bremont, and I absolutely love it. I've had some brilliant nights, some horrible hangovers, some of the most humbling experiences in my lives in a good way. Just how you see guys, girls of all walks of life who have one mission, and that's just to respect that uniform. And when they put a watch, no matter which brand, on their wrist, it's part of that uniform. And so I'd love to think that we can get a few Christopher Wards out there into the US and our forces around the world. But yeah, that comes from Mike's way of working and talking, and he's a very respectful fella that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you won't have a problem, because there's one thing that we love, and it's cool swag, because a lot of times you get issued stuff and it's just like, you know what I mean? You understand why the government has a budget. So sometimes you get issued stuff and you're like, okay. But every once in a while, like, they're like, and it's never happened to me, but I know guys that were issued like G-Shocks.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, I got a free G-Shock. You know what I mean? And it's cool because you didn't pay for it. You know what I mean? Like,
they might be having to pay for the watch.
Yeah, I know.
But they'll be buying something very bespoke to their squadron. Yeah, which is really cool.
And it's a memento from a period of time. And, that's a thing a lot of us military people realize. There's a lot of hard times. We do hard work. It's not easy, but it's the people, it's the moments you have with the people. And most of us, I work with and I run into, we choose to remember those times, and to have something that encapsulates that literally in time is something I think will be a home run.
One thing I think I've taken massively from my time at Zodiac was the history and the heritage of the brand and what it meant through Vietnam and Korea, and what the Seawolf did. And even though Christopher Ward has a very short, small history, and comparatively, what they've done in terms of the last 20 years, especially the last 5, they're building their own legacy. But these modern day military partnership watches, God forbid, means they're going to be in combat zones, but they're going to be on risks of people who are ready for it, and that's quite exciting and humbling again, but exciting in the way where they're going to trust the brand to choose that squadron on that watch. It's great. I mean, you might know, this is obviously myself, just seeing it from afar, the Christopher Ward name on the dial has now changed into the reverse flag, and how they've applied everything. Like even things like that, they know how to to apply the marketing side of it, but to tell a story of their brand without being too obvious. So they've got it going on. They're doing it right, and I'm very proud to be a part of it, or just to see what it could be as well, or what it could offer.
Yeah, it's there's a huge following out there. I think like joking around about the blogs earlier, the Christopher Ward forums. You know, I didn't. I've heard about them, but I did a little bit of homework for this episode to go check them out. It's a lively environment.
And
There's
it's
discussion.
very unique. It's a very
Yeah.
unique one. I'll tell you again from my experience. Excuse me, from my time with Bremont, they have a forum called Altitude. It's brilliant,
Hmm.
run by some very good friends of mine, but they're very rare to find. So back in the day when you had Time Zone, TZ UK, Watch You See, when the forums were on, some people really just want to talk about the brand they love. And there was one
Yeah.
gentleman, his name is Kip. I don't know if he's listening to this. I hope he is. But he started the Christopher Ward Forum. It was very
Oh wow.
independent. And it ended up being something which is now in part of Christopher Ward's website because they kept the community together. What's incredibly unique is that Mike France, myself, anybody who works within the brand, we do not and are actively told, stay away. This is for us. But if you can send us press releases, show us the watches, we can help celebrate it. What's beautiful about that is there is a genuine respect for each other, the community to the brand, without having to say if they don't like something or not, or be upset if something's not quite right, but they can celebrate differently. What I do love about Kip and this forum, though, is that they have a back catalogue. He's catalogued every single watch over the last 20
Oh
years.
wow.
And so you can see the care and attention from one person who's not getting paid for it, who is going to be, you think about Rolex back in the early 1900s, if someone cataloguing all those watches from today, what if in 100 years' time those catalogued watches mean something to the collectors of the future? And that's why that forum matters to me, because I'm going to be learning a lot about the brand over the last 20 years, especially the last 5, like I said, from that forum. I'll
Yeah.
also see the good and the bad of what they might have experienced in customer service, or their feelings about shipping, or what the color Pantones that are coming out. But forums are really important, but to have their own and to be as respected by the
Yeah.
people on there, I think it's a real telltale sign of the strength of the brand.
Yeah. That's a bold move. Maybe one they didn't really. I mean, maybe they did consider it when they started the forum, but I mean, I'm not going to name any brands, but there's like major brands that have like misalignment issues and stuff. Could you imagine a forum? The vitriol in that forum, you know what I mean? Like, but maybe it would be helpful. Maybe someone would actually read it and tell their boss, like, "Hey, boss, like we got a problem with bezel alignment,"
Yeah.
and they're like, "Stop everything."
I think, especially, I mean, I had meetings today. I told you before we pressed record, I had meetings today with Mike France, and I saw a couple of things which I would suggest, and we went through line by line, point by point about what we could do differently. The telltale sign of a good person and a good brand is that they listen and they want to do better. And I've seen through social, through some of the different ways that there's a gentleman called Patrick who looks after their social media and some of the reviewers, and he's just on it. So if anything he sees, it goes to the right department, and then it's jumped on. So I'm sure the forum has that as well.
Yeah, you need clear lines of communication. Like, communication 101. Like, the more horizontal layers you put in between a chain of command, the more problems you're going to have. Like you need checks and balances, but you need to get the right information to the right people in the right time, or else you're going to have huge problems.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to business as well as, any other function.
You might be probably a little bit more aware of that than what I would do in Watch World compared to your military world.
Yeah. No, I mean, and listen, and you can have it would be great if we didn't have that problem too, but we have the problem just like anybody else does. But yeah, I know what you mean. So Mike, Christopher Ward, like what's something, I know you can't give away anything and we're not going to give away any Easter eggs or stuff, but like, what's something that someone would be surprised, like a watch enthusiast that's watching this, general watch enthusiast, doesn't have to be military, but someone would be surprised to know about Christopher Ward that you think that you've learned that you feel isn't widely known, that would be surprising or maybe educational about the brand?
Well, I can't give away numbers.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing. But if I could say what I know, you would be surprised how small and nimble the collection is in terms of how it works, but also how the breadth within the within the company, from the Swiss manufacturers, the designers, the movement supply chain, and then also the people who are building their own movements. But what Mike France does, I mean, it might not be surprising to keep all of them energized, enthused, and looking forward is very hard to quantify after, especially after just the first week of seeing behind the curtain. But to see the genuine way that they want the community to buy for a lesser price, for a better watch, by what I said at the beginning, by paying in the duties and sending around the world for free, that is not in any type of marketing. Their 60-month guarantee on the movement, that is not to make you feel like you're being pulled in like a lot of the brands might do. And I say that with respect. I mean, it's not just a piece of paper. They want you to feel secure and trust that watch. It's all encompassing. I think most of the watch community would see those bits, but I don't think they see the entirety of what I might have seen this week about how genuine it is and what they want to do. When Mike says that the price of the watch is determined by the power of three, as in like how much the watch costs to build, increasing that by three times instead of marking it up 10, 20 times, depending on what brand you might have, and giving the consumer a fantastic watch at a fraction of the price compared to what it should be probably worth in today's money. But by and I say this because I love the retail side of it. They're not cutting that out in a way of disrespecting it. They want to be different. They want, we've all gone through COVID. We all bought every single piece of our world through Amazon and eBay. But they can do it with watches. But if they can do it through good communication, great service, proper guarantee and warranty, taking away the worry of shipping or the duties or the taxes that you might have, all of those things are a tough thing to swallow in the watch industry, especially customer service. I think they've got something really on the nose right now, and that is something that I think we'll have to get through. Most of our community will know most of it, but to tie it together that it's a genuine package, that's going to be quite cool to see how people react to that.
Yeah, and you said something about can't discuss the amount of units pushed, but I noticed when I looked at the Christopher Ward website, I'm like, oh, okay, they have a good selection, but they don't have, it didn't seem unwieldy, right? Unwieldy. Like it was too big to handle. And I have a buddy of mine who, he retired from the Navy, but he went to culinary school before he retired and became a chef, right? Yeah. He realized he didn't like doing that. So now he's just the greatest home chef of all time. He like makes pasta for his family. Anyways, he said something when he came back from culinary school one day. He's like, hey man, the best restaurants have small menus. Yeah, he goes, the very best ones have small to medium-sized menus. And he goes, because they make good things, they make them very, very well, and they replicate them, and then occasionally they'll have specials, which is where they stretch their legs, right, and show their chops. He goes, but there's a reason why people come back to that restaurant over and over and over again, because they know they're getting the quality.
I really enjoy going to TGI Fridays with my wife and kids, but I cannot or Cheesecake Factory, but I cannot decide I'm going to eat in that. The menu's too. I agree.
Yeah, and all the drinks are neon colored, which is
they're not good for you, are they?
Yeah. Do
you know what? I have thought of one thing that I would love your people to do. And this is something quite recent that I found out. An average of 2%, and if not more, of every Christopher watch sale goes to charity.
Oh, wow.
And that is something which is going to come out more and more this year. Right now, I've just found out that they work really, really closely with the Blue Marine Foundation. And that's all about ocean preservation and conservation. But they can work with people such as the Dave Shepherd Wildlife Foundation. And if you are close to the brand, you would know about the Tide Ocean Material, where they make certain watch straps out of put together plastic waste from the ocean. But 2% of every sale, that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars each year that goes to a good cause and a good charity. But considering, we know that charity and it means so much, but they don't even talk about it just yet. So that's a lovely thing to finish on my side. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was me really finding out all that they did today and what it's going to be meaning for the brand in the future. But yeah, that was quite special to hear. That's
pretty sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out, and then I'll cover it some more because I'm all about brands doing stuff for charities. You'd be surprised, like you say, like sometimes they just don't. They don't. You have to go to the website and like dig to like the 40th tab, and then you're like, oh,
they do some. With Mike today,
they do some cool stuff.
it's in the Our Purpose part of the Christopher Ward website, and you'd read all about it.
Yeah.
You might also read on there that they are the official timing partner of Everton, which is a Premier League football club. You might see over my shoulder, I'm a massive Aston Villa fan. So when they asked me to join, that was into consideration. But if you were going to, football, soccer in England is very, it's territorial. It's, it's tribal. Your team, your colours mean so much.
Yes.
I think quite similar to what you might find with college here. Your colours mean so much, but it's not as aggressive or as strong as it is in the UK or around the world with soccer.
Yeah.
But Everton, like Villa, I think I'd put people like Newcastle and Tottenham. There are these old clubs that are still up and around the top parts of the league, who have been around for 140, 150 years, who are part of communities. And Mike France is an Evertonian. He's a massive fan of the company or the club. But they're also doing things right. There's certain charities that Everton work with that are close to his heart. There are certain people in his family that love watches and football, and so why not? But what Everton mean to football as a whole is something really special, just like my love of Aston Villa. So I'm excited and a little nervous to get close to another club, but I will not be wearing that blue, and I've told Mike that as well. It's always going to be claret blue.
so in my close to 15 years of being able to actually really follow English football, right?
Right.
I would say in defense of Christopher Ward that we're all little toffees at heart. Like we're all a little toffee at heart. You know what I mean?
It's tough when you're in a city that you've got just across one patch of grass. You've got Liverpool, which is about the Yankees or the Red Sox from years by. They're overshadowing in some ways. So when they talk about it, that Everton are the people's club. That's the name they've got for themselves. I think there's a lot to be said about it, and that's said it through a very genuine, begrudging smile as an Aston Villa fan.
Yeah. It's hey, we're not a soccer podcast, but it's good stuff to talk about.
Hey, if anybody wants to talk about football with me, I'm more than happy to. You know that.
We should just start a podcast, and it'd be like the dumb American and the educated Englishman talk soccer. And then
your son, I see. So I don't know how much you put out there, but your son's one heck of a football player. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, he works hard. Well, Mike, I wanted to say thanks. Thanks again for coming on. And I always say, the biggest gift in this industry, or whatever you want to call it, right, is access. And I always appreciate when people provide access, because it's you hear it firsthand and you hear it from the horse's mouth, which is a horrible saying, but I just want to say thanks for everything. And do you have any parting shots for the audience?
I'm going to England in about 2 weeks, at the start of February, and then I'll go to Switzerland. And I'd love to come back on, and I'd love to meet you all, because I'm going to learn everything I can about this brand. And if you are on my social media, and if you see where I'm going to be it a wind-up or a watch get-together with the certain clubs around the country, please come and see me. I'll buy you a drink. Let's talk watches and football. But by the end of February, I'll be up to speed on everything Christopher Ward, and I'd love to chat to you and tell you my true feelings after I know more about it. But thank you for letting me 5 days in tell you my first feelings about the brand and why.
I appreciate it, Mike. And open invitation, whenever you want to come back. And I'm sure everybody will love to hear you. But thanks for coming on.
Happy New Year,
brother. I appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. Happy New Year to everyone. And remember, at WatchRolling.com, you make the watch. The watch doesn't make you.